Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. I can't believe we're here. I said this in the previous game by game Iowa season preview and predictions video. But it's just so true. I cannot believe we're already here. We are less than a week away from the first game of the season for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We've already seen a handful of games. I know for sure I watched the highlights to the Georgia Tech versus Florida State game, in which Georgia Tech upset Florida State. That's the beautiful thing about college football and college sports in general, is the unpredictability, because at the end of the day, even though these individuals are highly talented, highly athletic, highly skilled, they are, at the end of the day, still kids, and thus make kid-like mistakes sometimes. Uh, you guys catch my meaning. They're kids in the sense that they are young adults, and it's not gonna be as predictable as the NFL now or professional sports. Now, professional sports has its own unpredictability, in that when you have people that are that talented on any given Sunday, any team can win just because of how talented all the players are. But in college sports, it's a different thing. It's more due to them being so young. But it was a reminder all the same that we are here and we are finally ready for the season. I'm pumped. I brought out the blazer. It's a little toasty, I'm not going to lie, but I'm doing it for you guys. You guys seem to like the blazer. You guys seem to like me looking sharp, looking ready to go. So that's what I'm going to do. This is, of course, the Iowa versus Illinois State game preview. I'm going to be checking out the Iowa Hawkeyes, checking out Illinois State, giving you guys my prediction at the end of it. And before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys to consider smashing that subscribe button, like, comment. It really helps the algorithm and the channel and the video when you guys comment, engage with the video. I try and comment on all of the comments that are there, as long as they are respectful. And I would really love to get this channel to 2,000 subs. I was hoping to get there by the start of the football season, and we are inching closer there, but we aren't quite at 2K yet. But we will get there, mark my words. And without further ado, let's get into this. So let me start here, guys. Iowa coming into this game, I think the question marks are mostly on offense, as they always are. Defensively, I think there are not any major concerns. On every single level of the defense, Iowa has a lot of talent. They have NFL guys throughout the defense, the first level, the second level, and on the back end. High NFL level talent. I think the only two semi question marks that aren't like full-blown questions, but there's something to keep an eye on, would be the depth of the defensive line and who is going to have that second cornerback spot. I don't think the second cornerback spot is going to be flat out won by the first game. I think Phil Parker will roll out who he is most comfortable with in week one, obviously, and that will be the week one starter's position to lose. But I think Phil Parker will continue to have an open mind about who can possibly be the best person for that spot. The primary three contenders are TJ Hall. We've seen glimpses of his talent, his athleticism. He's got good size at 6'1" as a corner. He's got that bloodline. His dad is a coach. It was a big win for Iowa out of the state of California, which is a somewhat rare occurrence. John Nestor, who was a nice get for Iowa out of the state of Illinois, the Chicago area. He is much better than his recruiting rankings indicated, although I wouldn't say his recruiting rankings were bad. They just, I don't think, were as accurate as what he really is, especially now that we've seen him emerge pretty much immediately upon setting foot at Iowa, which says an awful lot about his talent. And the third player, of course, is Deshaun Lee, who for large portions of the season last year was the starting corner. He was in place of Jermari Harris when Jermari Harris was out with suspension, and then saw a lot of spot duty. I believe Cooper DeJean went down, and of course, Deshaun Lee was inserted into the starting lineup. But he's seen various starting snaps for various reasons, and all three of them have experience. Of the three, I would say John Nestor has the least amount of experience, but perhaps has the second most upside of the three. If I had to rank the upside, I'd probably say TJ Hall is 1A, John Nestor 1B, Deshaun Lee 2, just due to him being smaller in size. But all three of them are talented. There's a reason why they are vying for the starting spot. And then, of course, the defensive line, really, it's just the depth. There are some unproven guys that have gone through the Iowa developmental system that are working their way into the lineup, but we haven't really seen a ton of them. Max Llewellyn, who is a former four-star high upside recruit out of Urbandale High School in the Des Moines area. And I think the defensive line is missing the guy to start the season. As I said in my defensive line preview, it's certainly possible that one emerges out of Yaya or YA Black, or I always forget how to say it. I think it's YA Black. Aaron Graves, Deontay Craig, and Ethan Herkett. I wouldn't be I would not be surprised at all if either one of them emerged. If I were to place a bet on who I think it would be, I would probably say Deontay Craig, Aaron Graves, or YA Black. Those are the three. They're highly talented. They have great size, great stature. So the front four for Iowa, the starting front four, I think has good size, good athleticism. They have good experience. It is really getting that depth. And then hopefully Iowa is able to get an alpha to emerge on that defensive line. On the offense, that is the major question mark. What is Tim Lester going to look like in year one? Does he have enough talent? Who is going to be the starting quarterback? Is the quarterback play going to look better than what we have seen in years past from Brian Ferentz? Those are all reasonable questions. Is the wide receiver room finally going to get involved more than what we saw last year with one of the lowest percentages in the entire country of wide receiver attempts or the ball being thrown towards the wide receivers? The bright spot for Iowa definitely is that they have a solid tight end group, one of the best in the Big Ten. They have a very experienced offensive line group. Much like the defensive line group, they don't have an alpha, but one could definitely emerge. It's just as of right this second, they don't have a full-blown Tristan Wirfs or, an AJ Epinesa on the opposite end, or a Tyler Linderbaum. They don't have that as of yet, but they have guys that are certainly capable of becoming that guy. As for the quarterback position, to answer that question, I believe Cade McNamara is going to be the week one starter. Kirk Ferentz was asked to list where he thought the quarterback kind of hierarchy was at. And this was a couple of days ago. He was asked this when he was interviewed for his one-game suspension, which I will circle back to, which is a very important piece of information coming into this game. And he said Cade McNamara would be 1, Brendan Sullivan would be 2, and Marco Lainez would be 3. And I think that that is likely going to be what we see week 1. I've been saying this for a while. I think Brendan Sullivan is the guy that fits Tim Lester's offense the most. And I honestly believe that if it were entirely up to Tim Lester, I think he would go with Brendan Sullivan, but it's not. Of course, Kirk Ferentz is going to have input on who the starting quarterback is. And I think at this point, it is painfully obvious that he wants a return on his investment, as he received a 1-game suspension to land Cade McNamara. So if you're Kirk Ferentz, it's not out of the question to have the frame of mind of, well, I want it to be worth it. So that brings me to my next point, which of course is that Kirk Ferentz will be suspended for game 1, Illinois State, which is the game preview that we're doing right now, alongside John Budemeyer. I don't think it will be a huge issue. Although crazier things have happened, I think Iowa's coaching staff is really solid. They're very professional. They know how to coach. And it's going to be business as usual, especially for a ball club like Iowa that has such a fundamental and straight what it is system. There's very little deviation from what it is that they do and who they are. So whoever the head coach is for one game, it could be even for a couple of games, but definitely just for one, it's not going to make much of a difference. With that said, I'm very curious to see what Seth Wallace will look like, who will likely be the listed head coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes coming into this game. He is, as far as appearances go and what we have been able to see and glean from the Iowa media, the heir apparent to Kirk Ferentz. When I did a while back a video on who were possible replacements for Kirk Ferentz, I did have Seth Wallace there, but I did not have him as high as he is. Remember, at the time when I did that video, LeVar Woods had some of the best special teams performances, and it's not really a surprise to not have a linebacker coach as high up the list as maybe some other external candidates. But the bottom line is, at this point, it is very obvious that internally, the Iowa coaching staff puts a high priority on Seth Wallace. Going back to the Iowa offense, what I am looking for, well, let me go back even one step further. As I was saying, the good news for Iowa is that they have a solid offensive line. Hopefully they have an alpha that can emerge. They do also have an experienced run game. Now, a lot of that will be predicated on the offensive line, but Iowa does have talent and experience at the running back position. They have all of their guys coming back from last year, and they have proven workhorses. Now, do they have an alpha as of yet? That remains to be seen. But is that more a statement about Iowa's lack of production as a whole and the scheme as a whole of the offense last year? Or is it a critique of the lack of alphaness of Iowa's running back room? I think it is the former. I think it has far more to do with the scheme and the lack of creativity offensively that led to small running rooms for these running backs. Caleb Johnson, of course, looked to be a rising star that was going to be the next Sean Green for Iowa. He took a bit of a step back in his sophomore year at Iowa due to injuries. Hopefully, with one more offseason under his belt, he can become the guy that a lot of people were hoping him to be. What we have seen has been very positive. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that reports are out there saying that he's the next Doak Walker Award winner. I haven't heard anything like that, but everything that we have seen has been very positive. And LaShawn Williams has been out, which has given some nice reps to Kamari Moulton and to Caleb Johnson. The wide receiver room, Iowa has some guys that I think are talented as well, but time will tell how talented they are. As a whole, I've been clamoring this for a long time. A lot of Iowa fans believe that Iowa is unsuccessful offensively because they do not have talent at the wide receiver room. They don't have talent across the entirety of the offense. I totally and utterly disagree with that. I think they do have talent on in the wide receiver room. In fact, I've looked and shown you guys Iowa's wide receiver room according to the recruiting rankings time and time again. And it shows that if anything, Iowa has out recruited. They have outkicked their coverage and what they actually should be able to get due to the poor performance the last couple of years offensively. Caleb Brown, of course, is the highest rated wide receiver that Iowa has ever landed. He was a top 100 player who was committed or played one season at Ohio State and was signed with them for a time. Seth Anderson, very talented. Caden Wetschin. And there's some up and comers, Dayton Howard, Reese Vanderzee. So there is some good. There's also TJ Washington, who is a converted converted wide receiver from the running back room. So we'll see how many reps he gets if he ends up turning into a full-time wide receiver. It is very apparent that Iowa is doing its utmost to bolster the wide receiver room. That is very apparent what Tim Lester is trying to do, as not only has TJ Washington moved over to the wide receiver room, but so has incoming freshman. Let's see what his name is here. Brevin Dull. I was very excited about him as a running back, but I can definitely see their move of him to the wide receiver room. When it's a school like Iowa that struggles to get some of these athletic freaks in recruiting, they have to prioritize the guys that they are able to land. And the bottom line is the running back room is extremely healthy and vibrant right now. If Brevin Dull or TJ Washington were to stay in the running back room, they would honestly be wasted talent. And I got to tell you the truth, while I am saddened to see him not be a running back, it kind of does give me optimism about our new offensive coordinator, Tim Lester, as he is showing a willingness to get talented guys on the field, which is what I have been clamoring for a long time. All right, guys, let's take a look at some of the other things. I had to take the blazer off. It was just too dang hot. Maybe I'll throw it back on here in a little bit. We're going to look at the game preview, look at Illinois State. All right, guys, this is Illinois State last year. They went 6-5. Of course, they are an FCS team. FCS opponents, as I'll get to later in this video, have definitely given Iowa some trouble in the past, although those teams went on to be very, very good teams. It was either North Dakota State or North Dakota. And like I said, we'll recircle back to that. There's an article that I have that goes over that. So they perhaps had a few FBS teams within this, maybe Western Illinois or Eastern Illinois, but that's about it. Here are the stats from last year for some of their guys. I believe Tommy Rittenhouse is returning, although it's not predicted as of this recording that he will be the starter. Although, you know, there's a good chance, high likelihood that he'll see some reps, especially if Illinois State and their starting quarterback, which I'll circle back to, is the starter. We can see that Tommy Rittenhouse definitely is an option on the ground, as he had 140 yards rushing. Let's see if Daniel Sabkoyet is coming back. He had 923 Subcowics from Arlington Heights, 6'3", 205 pounds. He had 923 yards last year. Not bad. 10 touchdowns. That's not bad at all. So, and then here is, let's see. We have the game preview by ESPN. They have their football power index that predicts the outcome of the game. And here it is. By the way, the game starts at 9 a.m. and it looks like it might be on the Big Ten network. We'll see. Iowa comes into this game ranked 25th in the country in both the coaches and AP poll. The FPI Football Power Index gives Iowa a 93% chance of winning this game and Illinois State a 7% chance. Here are the last five, which you guys saw in the previous slide. So Illinois State is coming off of a loss to North Dakota. Iowa, of course, coming off of two back-to-back losses, shutouts to Michigan and Tennessee, Big Ten championship game, and the bowl game. I believe it was the Citrus Bowl that Iowa played in last year. But they did defeat Nebraska in remarkable fashion, a classic Iowa victory. Iowa victory to the bone, some would say. They defeated Illinois 15-13 and Rutgers 22-0. Here is Iowa's depth chart. I'm going to pull up their stats for Iowa's stats from last year as well. This is definitely going to be fluid. I don't think everything that's listed here is what it's going to be exactly. And unfortunately, the depth chart has not been released yet as of this recording. I think it'll be released tomorrow or Tuesday. I'm recording this Sunday. You know, the interesting aspect is redshirt freshman Jarriett Buoy being in the starting lineup. Caleb Brown won't be there. He'll be suspended for game one. That's also, I should have mentioned that, alongside Kirk Ferentz and John Budemeyer when discussing their suspensions. But that'll give some opportunity and some reps to Jarriett Buoy, maybe Dayton Howard, maybe Terrell Washington Jr., definitely Caden Wetschin. So I think everything else here will likely remain the same, especially the offensive line, the running back room, and the tight ends. And then here is Iowa's defense. You guys can pause this video to check it out. I'll move it to the side a little bit so you guys can see the third stringers. As I was saying at the onset of this video, there's guys like Max Llewellyn, Jeff Bowie, who kind of are classic Iowa guys. They come to Iowa. Max Llewellyn was a 4-star guy, according to 247 Sports. He was in that vaunted 2021. He was either 2020 or 2021 recruiting class. That was a top 25 recruiting class for Iowa. The one with Keegan Johnson and Arland Bruce, due to the state of Iowa just having a magnificent year for recruits. But of course, that was either the year after the main COOF year or before. I think it was the year after. But the state of Iowa had a amazing year for FBS level recruits coming out of the state of Iowa. But these guys are classic Iowa guys in that they come to Iowa. They might even be pretty solid recruits, but especially if you come to Iowa at the defensive line and things like that, you got to get in the weight room, and it takes time. And we kind of don't hear about them for a year, 2, sometimes 3 years. And then all of a sudden we see them on the depth chart. They've gone through the development. They've gone through the practice, the reps, the whole 9 yards. And here they are. I am excited to see Max Llewellyn. I think he's got incredible upside. And I really hope to see some reps from him. I think everything else will be accurate. Maybe not John Nestor. I believe TJ Hall has the edge of as of right now. And that is that. We're going to take a look at the stats here. Unfortunately, I could not find Illinois State Illinois State's depth chart, so I'm not going to be able to show that to you guys as their FCS program, and I don't see any articles listing their depth chart or projected depth chart. So, it kind of is what it is. But nonetheless, I wanted to just mention that really quickly. Here's some of the stats for Iowa last year. Cade McNamara, 505 yards in an injury shortened season. LaShawn Williams nearly had 1,000 yards. He had 821 yards, 4.8 yards per carry with only one touchdown. That needs to rise. I think if LaShawn Williams can get this total up to 900, maybe even 1,000, it will definitely be a productive season with a 5-yard average. That would be really solid, although 4.8 is not too bad. Caleb Johnson, 463 yards, only averaging 4 yards a carry. Josiah Patterson, 206. Kamari Moulton, who has seen a surge after being in Iowa's weight room. He had 93 yards last year. Let's see. Caleb Brown, 54 yards rushing. Eric All was the leading receiver, even after missing a large portion of the season. Just goes to show how bad Iowa was at passing the football last year. Nico Reganey, aka Nico Ragaini, aka Nico Ragaani, 255 yards, the leading receiver for Iowa. Addison Ostrenga had a nice redshirt freshman year with 192 yards. And then, of course, there's Luke Lachey, who had 131 before going down with an injury. And then we can see some of the defensive totals. You guys can pause it and take a look at it. I'm going to scroll all the way down so you guys can see. So Jay Higgins with a massive 171 total tackles. Unbelievable. All right. So before we get to this article here, I by the way, I don't think that this is completely accurate, which I'll discuss. This is the projected final depth chart by Dear Old Gold. Kansas State, which we're going to circle back to, their starting quarterback is former 4-star out of the Des Moines area quarterback Jake Rubley, aka Jake Ruble. He was at Kansas State for 3 years. He spurned Iowa in that vaunted, it was either 2021 or 2020 recruiting class that was really good for Iowa, top 25 as previously mentioned. He was the very few guys that did not choose the Iowa Hawkeyes from the state of Iowa, instead choosing to go to Kansas State. So let's look at, but we're going to circle back to that. They have Marco Lainez as the projected quarterback too. I disagree with that. I think it's going to be Brendan Sullivan, as Kirk Ferentz has said as much. When he answered if a game were to start today, what would be your pecking order? It was McNamara 1, and Sullivan 2, Lainez 3. And honestly, Lainez, according to reports, is actually being pushed by the walk-on from Colorado State, who was formerly committed to Washington out of the state of California, La Jolla product, which is a really good high school in the state of California. And so I definitely don't think that that is accurate. Believe it's Brandon Stratton is his name. So, not only do I not think this is accurate as far as him not being 2, he may not even be 3 at this point in time. So, Tim Lester, his motivation when coming to Iowa was to improve the quarterback room and the competition immediately, and he definitely has done that. I agree with the running back room. I think I agree with the wide receivers thus far. Let's see, tight ends definitely. I agree with the offensive line projection. Defensive line projection, I agree with. Linebackers, of course, I agree with. Let's see, secondary. I agree with I don't think John Nestor is going to be the week 1 starter, but I just have a gut feeling based off of the high praise that he's received. I have a gut feeling that he is going to end up being the starter when the season is done, by the time the season is done. But I don't think he'll be the starter week 1. I think it'll be TJ Hall or Deshaun Lee. As Iowa will likely want to go with a more experienced guy to give time for John Nestor to continue his development. Everything else I agree with. Xavier Wampa has been injured. Hopefully he's healthy enough to go week 1. Same with Cohen Entringer, and everything else I agree with there. Let's check out this article here. This is a betting site that predicts the games. Again, Illinois State versus Iowa Saturday, 9 Eastern. Does not say what channel this is going to be on. This is from Dimers Pro. Who will win? Says our famous predictive model gives Iowa a 97% chance of defeating Illinois State. And the final predicted score is Iowa winning 31-9. According to our model, Illinois State plus 23.5, their 23.5 point dogs, has a 52% chance of covering the spread, while the over and under total of 41 points has a 52% chance of going over. And lastly, we're going to review this article from the Gazette here. Early signs point towards Iowa football drawing a favorable schedule in the Big Ten's first season with 18 teams and no divisions. ESPN preseason football power index, while not a perfect metric, rated Iowa's strength of schedule 17th out of 18 teams in the Big Ten. Only Rutgers appears to have a more favorable schedule. Yes, Iowa does have a date with an Ohio State team on the road that should be dominant again in 2024, but the Hawkeyes avoided Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, and USC. Washington is on the schedule, but the Huskies lost their head coach and significant portions of the roster after the college football playoff appearance. Let's see. Let's go down. The 2 FCS teams who recently kept it close with or defeated the Hawkeyes had more success than what Illinois State has recently experienced, however. The 2016 North Dakota State team that beat the Iowa Hawkeyes was coming off an FCS national championship and went on to a 12-2 season. The 2022 South Dakota State team that did not lose another game on its way to winning an FCS national championship. And I remember at the time saying that South Dakota State was a dang good FCS team and could definitely compete in the FBS. But, nonetheless, Iowa still should have done a little bit better in that game. Iowa versus Illinois State, 3 things to watch. The season opener will offer the first in-game glimpse of Iowa's new offensive scheme under new offense coordinator Tim Lester. We have heard about the Hawkeyes scheme emulating the Green Bay Packers scheme under Matt LaFleur. We'll see it in action on August 31st. First, Jake Rubley, aka Jake Rubley, versus Iowa's secondary. Rubley was a 4-star recruit out of West Des Moines Valley who passed on an offer from his home state Hawkeyes in favor of Kansas State. After 3 years as a backup at Kansas State, he transferred to Illinois State. Incumbent quarterback Tommy Rittenhouse could also see playing time. And lastly, does Cade McNamara look like his 2021 self? This will be the key question for the Hawkeyes throughout the season. Fortunately for the former CFP starter, college football playoff starter, Illinois State provides a relatively easy on-ramp for what will be his first game in 11 months. The Redbirds allowed their FCS opponents to complete 64.5% of their passes last season. Iowa has not lost to an FCS opponent since 2016. This is unlikely to change this year against the Redbirds. All right, guys, my final thoughts on this. Usually I would show the team stats, but as always, because we're only in week 1, I'm not going to do that for this game. I usually start that around week 3. Once there's enough data in place to make some solid inferences from the stats. What I'm looking for, as I said at the beginning of the video, I want to see Tim Lester. I want to see what Seth Wallace looks like as head coach. And of course, I want to see whether Iowa's offense improves. That is unquestionably, anybody else who says anything different is incorrect. That is what everybody is going to be looking for, is whether Iowa's offense is improved. Enough was enough. Iowa fans were clamoring for Brian Ferentz to be gone. He's gone. We need better. And week one is a perfect opportunity to do so. Iowa has the talent at every single position. Are these guys all future NFL caliber players? Perhaps not. But still, there's enough talent on the offense to have a productive, average offense. Okay. That's all Iowa needs. We're not asking them to be good. We're not asking them to be great. We're not asking them to be excellent. We just need average. Okay. We certainly need it better from what it was last year. If Iowa can do that, they have a chance at running the table due to how loaded this Iowa's defense is. Now, again, that is the main thing that I'm going to be looking for. Defensively, of course, I'm going to be watching that. It's an important side of the football, probably the most important aspect of Iowa football. Again, the defensive line, who's going to be starting in the secondary? Can Iowa get pressure on the quarterback? Is this going to be an Iowa Phil Parker defense that is king at takeaways? We've kind of seen ebbs and flows with that. But whether Iowa is one of the top 20 teams in takeaways or not, they always seem to be able to have a elite defense. It's not to say that Iowa has been poor at takeaways in the years that they're not really, really good. They're still usually top, I would say 40 or 50. But year in, year out, I would not categorize them as a team that always is a supremely effective takeaway team. The number one thing about Iowa's defense is their bend, don't break philosophy, causing the other team to make mistakes and get off the field. If that means settling for 3 points here and there, that's fine. Just don't give up big plays. That is the number one thing. All the other stuff, the sacks, the interceptions, the forced fumbles, that's all gravy. Okay. Iowa wants to keep everything in front of it, keep it manageable, and make the offense beat them. So, with that said, I already predicted Iowa in this game, and I'm going to stick to it since I predicted it just a day or two ago. I got to pull up my score here. I have Iowa winning this game 27-10, but in all truth, I would not be surprised in the least if Iowa is able to hold Illinois State to even less than 10. I wouldn't even be surprised if they're able to keep them under 5. That's how good this defense is. But it is week one. And, Illinois State, while an FCS team, is not a pushover. And, Jake Rublay will have something to prove. They do have some guys on the offensive end that are definitely worth keeping an eye out for. So I expect Iowa's defense to be solid. Even if they do just give up 10 points, that's still really, really good. I think everybody would agree. Anytime you can keep your opponent to under 15 points, you have a really good chance of winning that football game. As for the 27 points, I almost went with 30, but the last few years, I have been totally screwed over by the Iowa offense in my prediction of them scoring 30 points. So I'm not going to do that until I am able to see that they're capable of doing so. Would I be surprised if they do? No, of course not. Again, they have the talent, and I do think Tim Lester has the ability to be a decent offensive coordinator. But while I wish Seth Wallace would really take the reins off and just be willing to do whatever he thinks best as the head coach, I don't think that that's likely. I don't think that he's just going to, call plays and have a game plan that he totally thinks is the best, and it's only solely him. Kirk Ferentz is still going to be involved in the game plan, and we're likely going to see a classic Kirk Ferentz team. So I think if Iowa can get over 25 points, that will be a step in the right direction. While not what I am hoping for, at the high end, it still will be a step in the right direction, especially if they're able to get over 300 yards of total offense at the very least. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. We've talked a lot about this. I've left no meat on the bone here. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Also, be sure to give a subscribe, like, again, comment. It helps the algorithm out. I'll comment as many of the comments as I can. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts our feelings, because your feelings just still matter. Iowa wins this game 27-10. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.